"Kiss me," the Mafia boss said, his hand gripping my wrist in the pitch-black elevator. "Or in 3 minutes, we're both dead." I had $47 in my bank account, a 4-year-old waiting at daycare, and Elvio Beneventi pressed against me in the dark, the man who controlled half this city. The elevator had dropped. Emergency phone, dead. Lights, flickering red. And outside those steel doors, I could hear footsteps. Deliberate. Slow. The kind that didn't need to rush because they knew their prey was trapped. "I don't understand," I whispered. Elvio's thumb traced my racing pulse. "They're coming to kill me. When they find you here, they'll kill you too. Unless..." Metal scraped against metal. Someone was cutting through. "Unless they think you're mine. That you matter. That killing you would cost them more than killing me." His voice dropped lower. "In my world, Carmen, perception is survival. Right now, you need to become the woman I'd burn this city down to protect. I don't even know you. You know, I own 3 judges and half the dock unions. You know, every cop in this city looks the other way when my name comes up." His other hand slid to my jaw. "You know, I'm your only chance of getting home to Isabella tonight." My daughter's name in his mouth made my blood freeze. 15 seconds, he said. "When those doors open, you're either a witness they eliminate, or you're untouchable. Choose." I thought about Isabella's gap-toothed smile, about who'd pick her up if I died here, about the promise I made when her father abandoned us. "I will survive anything for you." I grabbed Elvio's collar and pulled him down. The kiss didn't ask. It took, claimed, demanded his mouth on mine, hands sliding into my hair. Then the sound changed. The whine of the power tool stopped. Voices sharp, urgent. The metallic groan of doors being pried open. Cool air hit my face. Elvio's body shifted, shielding mine, but his mouth never left mine. His hand slid lower on my back, possessive, unmistakable. When he finally pulled back, his voice was ice. "You interrupt me again, and I'll send your wives pieces of you in boxes. Small pieces, over months." I heard the shuffle of feet, weapons being lowered, not all the way, but enough. Carmen has $47 and a 4-year-old to protect. In the next 30 minutes, she's going to learn how to read micro-expressions, create leverage from nothing, and negotiate a 30% raise, and you're going to learn right alongside her. If you've ever felt undervalued, powerless, or like you're one emergency away from losing everything, hit subscribe. Because this isn't just romance, it's strategy wrapped in a story you won't forget. Now let's see how she survives. 5 minutes earlier, I'd been counting again. It's what broke single mothers. Do we count everything? $47.32 in checking. $12 in cash. 6 days until payday. $3 for daycare late fees if I didn't pick up Isabella by 6. 2 cans of soup at home. 1 box of mac and cheese. 0 margin for error. The elevator doors had opened on the 14th floor, and he'd walked in. I knew his face the way you know a storm cloud. Elvio Beneventi. The name they whispered at my office when shipments went missing. The man whose photo I'd filed in 3 different police reports I'd typed up for the DA's office where I worked part-time. He'd nodded once. I'd pressed myself against the far wall. Then the building shook. Not an earthquake. Something controlled. Purposeful. The lights died, and in that half-second of darkness, I heard him exhale not fear, but recognition. "How many floors?" His voice cut through my panic. "What? How many floors did we drop before the emergency brake caught?" My brain stuttered. 2. Maybe 3. Good. You notice details. The emergency lights flickered on, bathing us in red. That's gonna keep you alive. He wasn't checking the emergency phone, wasn't pounding on doors. He was watching the floor display flicker. 14, 13, 12. Stop. Someone cut the cables? I asked. His eyes snapped to mine. Not someone. Luca Torrisi's crew. And not cut controlled descent. They wanted me stopped between floors 12 and 13 specifically. Why? Because... He checked his watch with eerie calm. 12 is where they're stationed. Easier to cut through 1 floor down than up. That's when I heard it. Footsteps above us. And the high-pitched whine of a power tool starting up. Here's what you need to understand about power, Elvio said, positioning himself between me and the doors. It's not about who has the biggest gun or the most men. It's about who controls the narrative. The cutting sound grew louder. Sparks showered from the top corner of the doors. I don't care about your Mafia philosophy. You should. Because right now the narrative is, Elvio Beneventi is trapped and vulnerable. That narrative gets me killed. He stepped closer, and I could see the calculation in his eyes. But if the narrative is, Elvio Beneventi is here with someone who matters to him, someone whose death would trigger a war, that narrative buys negotiation time. I don't matter to you. They don't know that. His hand caught my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. In about 2 minutes, those doors open. They expect to find me alone. What they're not expecting is to find me with a woman I'm protecting. That hesitation, that moment where they recalculate the cost, is the difference between living and dying. I jerked away. So I'm what, a human shield? Your leverage. There's a difference. The cutting sound stopped. Voices outside, sharp, urgent Italian. Your daughter, Isabella, 4 years old, attends Little Sprouts daycare on Maple. You're already 20 minutes late for pickup. My heart stopped. How do you... Because I pay attention to everyone in my orbit, including the woman who's been typing up warrant requests with my name on them for 6 months. He smiled, but his eyes stayed cold. The kind of disconnect that made my stomach drop, that reminded me of Isabella's father, right before he disappeared for good. So here's the choice, Carmen. You can stand there frozen when those doors open. You can scream. You can try to convince them you're innocent. And they will put a bullet in your head to hurt me. Or, the doors shuddered. You commit to the lie that saves us both. I thought about every domestic violence seminar I'd filed paperwork for. Every police report about women who trusted the wrong men. Every promise I'd made to be smarter than my mother, who'd loved a man who put her in the hospital twice. But I also thought about Isabella's voice on the phone this morning. Mama, I drawed you a butterfly. It has 100 colors because that's how much I love you. Who would explain to her why Mommy never came home? If I do this, I said, voice shaking, you get me out. You get me to my daughter. You make sure she never becomes leverage again. Something flickered across Elvio's face. Respect, maybe. You negotiate before agreeing. Smart. Yes, you have my word. Your word means nothing. In my world, it means everything. A man without his word is dead within a week. The doors groaned. 10 seconds. But understand, this isn't gentle. This isn't pretend. You sell this completely, or we both die. Can you do that? I grabbed his shirt and yanked him down. The kiss didn't ask. It took, claimed, demanded like I was a decision he'd already made and wouldn't reconsider. His mouth on mine, hands sliding into my hair, angling my head exactly where he wanted it. His other hand found my waist, pulled me flush against him, possessive and unmistakable. The doors exploded open. I heard them before I saw them 3 sets of footsteps, the click of weapons being raised. Elvio's body shielded mine, but he didn't break the kiss. Instead, he deepened it, his hand sliding lower on my back, holding me like I was something precious he'd killed to protect. When he finally pulled back, his expression was pure ice. You interrupt me again, he said quietly, each word precise as a blade. And I'll send your wives pieces of you in boxes. Small pieces. Over months. Silence. Then the sound of weapons being lowered. Not all the way, but enough. The tallest one spoke first. Torrisi said you'd be alone. Torrisi is an idiot who thinks predictability equals strength. Elvio's hand stayed on my hip. He also thinks I don't know about the accounts he's skimming in Calabria. Tell him when this is over, we'll discuss his retirement. Permanently. I watched the men's faces. The tall one's shoulders lifted just slightly, a defensive tell. The one on the right shifted his weight backward. The third's grip on his gun loosened by millimeters. They looked scared. Go, Elvio said, before I change my mind about letting you deliver that message. They left. Elvio pulled out his phone, sent one text. 30 seconds later, the elevator shuddered back to life. You're shaking, Elvio observed. You threatened to mail pieces of them to their wives. No, I promised I would. There's a difference. He stepped back, creating careful distance. Did you see their faces when I mentioned the accounts? The tall one's shoulders went up. Good. That's a micro-expression involuntary defensive posture that reveals truth before conscious thought catches up. His shoulders lifted because I was right about the skimming, and he knew Torrisi was exposed. Elvio adjusted his cuffs. In negotiation, in survival, reading those tells is worth more than any weapon. Why are you telling me this? Because you noticed details earlier. How many floors we dropped. That's rare. Most people panic and stop processing information. The elevator descended. If you're going to survive what comes next, you need to learn to see what people don't say. What comes next? But I already knew. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. 2 men in suits flanked the exit. Elvio draped his coat over my shoulders. "They saw your face, Carmen. You're marked now. And marked people either die or adapt." Outside, the city looked exactly the same. People rushing past with coffee cups and phones. How could they not see that my entire world had just fractured? A black car pulled up. Elvio opened the door but didn't force me inside. "Here's your choice," he said quietly. "Walk away now. I'll have Isabella picked up safely and delivered home. I'll assign protection you'll never see. Guards watching your apartment, your work, her daycare. You can pretend today never happened. But you'll spend every day looking over your shoulder, wondering if the man behind you in line is watching. Wondering if that car has been parked on your street before. Wondering when Torrisi decides the easiest way to hurt me is through you, because you're unprotected by anything except my mercy." He paused. "That's called safety. It's passive. It depends on everyone else choosing not to harm you." A woman hurried past us, juggling a toddler and grocery bags. She looked exhausted. She looked like me. "Or," I asked, "or, you get in this car. You learn what I know. How to read people. How to create leverage from nothing. How to make yourself too expensive to kill." His voice dropped. "That's survival. It's active. It depends on you becoming someone people can't afford to touch. You're talking about becoming like you. I'm talking about you never being powerless again." He tilted his head. "Your daughter's father. He left because you had no leverage, no way to make him stay. No consequences for abandoning you. You've spent 3 years drowning because you didn't know how to negotiate your worth." The truth of it hit like a slap. "I can teach you those skills," Elvio said. "Or you can keep surviving on $47 and prayers." I thought about my mother's voice before she died. "Baby, sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is play it safe." I got in the car. Elvio's penthouse smelled like old money leather, tobacco, and something else I couldn't name. Confidence, maybe, or the absence of fear. Everything my cramped apartment with its mildew and desperation wasn't. "My people are extracting Isabella now," he said, checking his phone. "They'll have her here in 20 minutes. But first," my phone rang. Little Sprout's daycare. My heart lurched as I answered. "Miss Hicks?" A woman's voice I didn't recognize. "This is Sarah from Little Sprouts. We're calling about Isabella." My heart stopped. "What's wrong? Is she—" "She's fine. But we need you to come verify some paperwork regarding pickup authorization. There's been a discrepancy." Elvio's hand covered mine, ending the call. "That wasn't the daycare," he said calmly. "What? Listen." He played back a recording, the same voice. But now I could hear it. The slight accent, the too formal phrasing, the absence of the usual daycare chaos in the background. "Torrisi's people, testing whether you're really under my protection. They called before my team arrived." He made one call, spoke 3 sentences in Italian. Hung up. "My people are with her now. The threat is handled." My hands were shaking. They were going to... No, they were going to see if I'd respond. "If I'd protect you the way I claimed in that elevator." His eyes met mine. "Now they know. You're not just a woman I kissed for show. You're someone I mobilized resources to protect. That changes everything. Because now the lie is real. Now the lie is convincing. There's a difference." He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. "And that's your first real lesson, Carmen. Power isn't about the truth. It's about what people believe is true." 20 minutes later, Isabella arrived, completely unaware of the danger that had circled her, and I realized something terrifying. I was grateful to him. And gratitude, in his world, was probably just another form of leverage. The sun set over the city, turning the glass towers gold. Isabella was tucked into a guest room that looked like something from a fairy tale, and I found myself standing in Elvio's study surrounded by books about strategy, psychology, negotiation. After Isabella was asleep, Elvio turned his penthouse into a classroom. "Everything is negotiation," he said, showing me footage from security cameras. "You go to work. You're negotiating your time for money. You raise your daughter. You're negotiating boundaries for safety. Most people negotiate from weakness because they don't understand leverage." On screen, a man approached one of Elvio's associates. Aggressive posture, pointing finger, loud voice. "What do you see?" Elvio asked. "Someone angry. Look at his feet," pointed toward the exit. "His hands are gesturing but never get within striking distance. Watch his breathing, shallow, rapid. Elvio paused the video. He's not angry. He's scared, and trying to look strong. That's the real negotiation. So what do? Give him an exit that lets him save face. Offer a compromise that makes him feel powerful. He leaves thinking he won, and you got what you actually needed. Elvio looked at me. Leverage is the gap between what someone wants and what they're willing to pay for it. Your boss wants your labor but pays you barely enough to survive. Why? Because I need the job more than he needs me. Exactly. You don't have leverage. But what if you became indispensable? What if you understood his pressure points, what keeps him up at night? What makes him look bad to his superiors? Elvio's voice was sharp. Then suddenly, losing you costs him more than paying you what you're worth. I thought about my boss, how he spoke to me versus how he spoke to the male attorneys. Was every dismissive comment a test of whether I'd accept being diminished? He's negotiating my worth downward, I said slowly. Every day. And you keep accepting the first frame that you're lucky to have the job, that you should be grateful, that speaking up risks everything. Elvio stood. That's called accepting other people's frames. And it's costing you everything. Over the next 3 days, Isabella played with Sophia, a grandmother type, who taught her Italian and baked cookies that smelled like cinnamon and safety. And I learned. Negotiation Rule 1, Elvio said on the second day. Never accept the first frame. Your boss treats you dismissively not because you're incompetent, but because you've accepted that treatment. The moment you reframe the interaction, everything changes. He pulled up files. My boss's cases, his conviction rates, his pressure points. He's up for a judicial appointment next year. Needs a flawless record. 3 of his cases have documentation issues, chain of custody problems, missing witness interviews. Small things that could become big things if the defense attorney is good. How do you know? I pay attention. And now you're going to fix those problems. You're going to make yourself indispensable. Then you're going to renegotiate. His eyes met mine. Not by threatening. By demonstrating you understand his vulnerabilities and can either relieve them or intensify them. That's manipulation. That's understanding the game well enough to win honestly. Manipulation is lying. Strategy is seeing the truth everyone else misses. On the 3rd day, he taught me more micro-expressions. How to spot lies. How to read fear masked as anger. How to control my own face so people saw what I wanted them to see. Your daughter's father, Elvio said suddenly. When he left, what reason did he give? The question felt like a trap. He said he wasn't ready, that he needed space. Did his body language match his words? I thought back. And suddenly I was seeing it through this new lens, everything Elvio had taught me about reading people. The way Raphael had looked everywhere except at me. The way his hands had kept fidgeting with his keys, nervous energy, seeking escape. The way he'd backed toward the door while talking, his feet already pointing away, putting distance between us before he'd even finished the sentence. No, I whispered. His feet were already pointing at the door. His hands were fidgeting. He looked scared. Of what? Of being trapped. Of failing. Of... The realization hit. Of me making him stay out of guilt instead of choice. And you let him frame it as his decision. His need for space. Elvio's voice gentled slightly. What if you'd reframed it? What if you'd said, "You're scared, and that's okay. But running doesn't make you less scared. It just makes you alone." He still would have left. Maybe. But you wouldn't have spent 3 years believing you weren't enough. You would have known the truth. He left because he was weak, not because you were insufficient. There's one more thing you need to understand, Elvio said on the 4th night. Isabella was asleep. The city glittered below us like scattered diamonds, each light a life, a negotiation, a choice between safety and survival. Fear and desire are the same currency. They both make people irrational. He turned to face me. Your boss fears looking incompetent. Torrisi fears losing power. Your daughter's father feared being trapped. His hand came up, thumb brushing my jaw exactly like it had in the elevator. You fear not being enough. That's why you accept less than you're worth. That fear is costing you everything. So I'm supposed to stop being afraid? No. You're supposed to understand what you desire more than you fear the cost. His voice dropped. What do you want, Carmen? Not what you think you deserve. What do you actually want? I thought about my crappy apartment, the second job, the constant counting, the exhaustion that lived in my bones, the way I'd stopped imagining anything better because hoping hurt too much. I want to stop being so tired, I whispered. I want Isabella to have more than I did. I want to stop negotiating with myself about whether I deserve to exist, then stop negotiating, start deciding. He stepped closer. That kiss in the elevator. You yanked me down. You made the choice. You didn't ask permission or apologize. For one moment, you wanted to survive more than you feared the cost. That was different. No, that was you without the fear that's been running your life. His other hand found my waist. I can teach you strategy. I can show you leverage. But the most important thing? You already have it. You just need to stop apologizing for it. The space between us felt electric, dangerous, like standing at the edge of a cliff and wanting to jump. If I do this, if I learn everything, what do I owe you? Elvio's smile was slow and dangerous and somehow gentle all at once. Nothing, because the woman I'm teaching, she's going to understand that owing someone is just another word for accepting their frame, and you're done accepting other people's frames. He leaned in, and this time when he kissed me, there was no elevator, no threat, no audience, just his hands tangling in my hair, his body pressed against mine, and the terrifying realization that I'd stopped surviving the moment and started choosing it. Just the woman who'd seized survival with both hands and the man who taught her she'd been strong enough all along. 3 months later, I walked into my boss's office with a folder. My hands trembled under the desk, but I controlled my breathing. Slow, deliberate, the way Elvio had taught me. My shoulders stayed down and back. My face stayed neutral. Control what they see. Mr. Patterson, I need to discuss something with you. He barely looked up from his computer. Make it quick, Carmen. I have a meeting in 10. I set the folder down. I've been reviewing the Hendricks case files, the Morales case, and the Fitzgerald case. All 3 have documentation issues that could become problems if they're challenged on appeal. His fingers stopped typing. There, his jaw tightened. Defensive tell. What kind of problems? Chain of custody gaps. Witnesses who were never interviewed. Evidence logged but never properly processed. I kept my voice calm, professional. It's almost like someone wanted these cases to have vulnerabilities. His face went pale. I watched his hands. They flattened against the desk, pressing down, trying to ground himself, trying to appear in control. Carmen, I don't think you understand. I do understand. You're up for a judicial appointment. These cases need to be airtight. I opened the folder. I've spent the last 3 weeks fixing everything, reorganized the evidence logs, scheduled the witness interviews, closed every gap that could have been exploited. He stared at the pages, at the work that would have taken him months. His breathing changed faster, shallower. I've also been handling paralegal work for 6 months, legal research, case preparation, witness coordination. But I'm being paid as an administrative assistant. I met his eyes. That's going to change. He tried to recover, leaned back in his chair, false confidence, claiming space. Now, Carmen, budgets are tight. I'm not finished. I watched his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed. Fear. I need my position reclassified as junior paralegal with appropriate salary adjustment. 30% increase. Full benefits. And I need Fridays off at 3 to pick up my daughter. Non-negotiable. That's not. Or, I take my analysis of these cases to the DA directly. I'm happy to explain how documentation issues nearly compromised 3 high-profile convictions. How that might affect your appointment. I smiled the way Elvio had taught me, pleasant but sharp. I'm happy either way, but I'm done accepting less than I'm worth. The silence stretched. I watched him recalculate, watched his hands fidget with his pen, a tell that meant he was looking for an exit that let him save face. My spine felt like steel. My voice didn't shake, and for the first time in 3 years, the ground beneath my feet felt solid instead of constantly shifting. 25%. He finally said. And the benefits package. I stood, gathering my folder. 30%, benefits, and the Friday schedule. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. After that, I take my reorganization work and my concerns to the DA. I walked out before he could respond. In the hallway, my hands finally shook, but this time it felt different, not fear. Power. He called 2 hours later, agreed to everything. That night, Elvio was waiting at my apartment with takeout and a smile that made my heart skip. How did it feel? He asked. Terrifying. I kissed him. And incredible. I watched his hands flatten against the desk. His jaw tightened. His breathing changed. Every tell you taught me, because you found his pressure point. You understood what he feared, more than what he wanted. He pulled me close. That's the difference between surviving and living. Surviving is hoping the world won't hurt you. Living is knowing you can handle it when it does. Isabella ran out from her room. Elvio, did you bring the cookies Sophia makes? In the bag, Piccolina. He knelt down to her level, this dangerous man making himself small for my daughter. Your mama did something very brave today. She's always brave, Isabella said matter-of-factly, grabbing the cookies. After she went back to her room, I looked at Elvio. That thing you said in the elevator. About perception being survival. I understand it now. What do you understand? That I'd spent my whole life accepting how people saw me. Broke single mom, barely surviving, not worth investing in. And the moment I changed how I saw myself, everything else changed too. He traced my jawline with his thumb. You were always strong, Carmen. You just didn't know what strength looked like in a world designed to make you feel weak. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me. You did that. I just showed you that you could. He kissed me softly. The woman who walked into that elevator? She was surviving. The woman who walked into her boss's office today? She was living. That's all you. That's all it ever was. I thought about the elevator, the darkness, the choice between being a victim or becoming untouchable, how I'd seized his collar and decided in that single moment that I deserved to survive. We started trapped in a metal box with death at the door. We ended with me understanding that the most dangerous prison wasn't the steel box, it was the fear that told me I didn't deserve more. Back then, that kiss was survival. Now, it was the moment I stopped waiting for permission to want more from my life. And nothing has been the same since. Carmen walked into that elevator with $47 and fear running her life. She walked out of her boss's office 3 months later with a 30% raise and the knowledge that she was never powerless. She just didn't know the game. Here's the truth. Everything Elvio taught her, reading micro-expressions, creating leverage, reframing negotiations, those aren't fiction. Those are real psychological tactics that work in real life. So here's my question. What frame are you accepting right now? The boss who dismisses you? The salary that's insulting? The voice that says you should be grateful for less? If this story made you see your situation differently, if you're ready to stop surviving and start living, subscribe. Because 5 times a week, I create stories like this. Romance that teaches you real-world power. Stories you'll remember Monday morning when you're negotiating your worth. Comment below. What's the one negotiation you're approaching differently now? And if you know someone stuck in the $47 mindset, send them this video. Tell them, this one's for you. You're not trapped in an elevator, but you might be trapped in a frame someone else built, and it's time to break out. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next story.